In Palestine, health officials warn of impending disaster in the Gaza Strip due to severe shortages of medical supplies and fuel to keep hospitals running. In China, the 6th International Import Expo launched with the presence of more than 3,400 exhibitors and almost 400,000 visitors. And in Italy, authorities registered over €6 billion in losses in agriculture after extreme weather events in the north. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Palestine, health officials warn of impending disaster in the Gaza Strip due to severe shortages of medical supplies and fuel to keep hospitals running. Through a statement, health authorities denounced that the Israeli attacks against the health sector in Gaza resulted in the death of more than 150 medical personnel. At least 27 ambulances have been destroyed, and 16 hospitals and 32 primary healthcare centers are no longer operational. The health agency further stated that the shelling by the occupation forces around the hospitals in Gaza is forcing medical personnel to abandon their work and their patients. In view of the situation, the Minister of Health appealed to the international community to urgently supply fuel to Gaza hospitals. In Palestine, the health ministry reported more than 9,770 Palestinians killed in the ongoing Israeli siege of Gaza. According to health ministry figures, some 26,000 people were injured as a result of the Israeli bombardment of the Palestinian territory. Authorities warned that since the beginning of the Israeli attacks on October 7th, some 4,880 children have been killed. The Israeli attacks on Gaza have continued uninterrupted since the beginning of October, despite calls by world nations for a humanitarian ceasefire to allow the evacuation and treatment of wounded civilians in the territory. The images on screen are of the latest shelling carried out by the Israeli occupation forces against Gaza. The Israeli regime has bombed Gaza for 30 consecutive days now, hitting civilian infrastructures, hospitals, schools, places of worship. Authorities report that over 70% of the victims are children, women, and the elderly. On Sunday, at least 4 Palestinians were killed by Israeli forces during attacks in several cities in the occupied West Bank. Hundreds held a funeral procession following the killing by Israeli forces of 3 young men in the town of Abu Dis, east of occupied Jerusalem. Earlier, a large contingent of the occupation army stormed the area and laid siege to a house, leading to clashes in which also 6 Palestinians were wounded, 2 of them seriously. On the other hand, the Israeli operation left another young man killed in the city of Nuba, northwest of Hebron, while on the same day a minor died of wounds inflicted days earlier in the town of Al-Esariya. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, 152 people were killed by Israel in the occupied West Bank since October 7th. On Saturday in Turkey, pro-Palestinian demonstrators tried to break into a U.S. military air base while police tried to keep the order. The rally took place in Adana, in close proximity to a U.S. military airbase. People were protesting against the presence of U.S. military airplanes in Turkish soil. Demonstrators were met with tear gas. Meanwhile, rally organizers urged demonstrators to focus on the demonstration in favor of the Palestinian people instead of creating an incident. Thousands of people gathered on Sunday in front of the U.S. military base near the city of Adana in Turkey in solidarity with the Palestinian people and to demand the shutdown of the base. Our correspondent in Turkey, Yunus Soner, brings us now details of these demonstrations.
The demonstration is over in front of the Incirlik U.S. military base in Adana in the south of Turkey. Here in the back now, you can have a better view of the military base. The access to this part had been closed to the public before. But don't be confused with the Turkey flags you see there. This is a shared base. The Turkey armed forces also have units here, but the base is mostly known for its U.S. operations during the Iraq War and operations in Syria, Lebanon, and the Eastern Mediterranean. The demonstration is over, and most of the participants have left the area. You can still see small groups in the background facing off the police. They are small groups trying to move on. The police are using tear gas and pressure water, but all is ending now. What I appreciate is that people are happy to have expressed their opinions in front of the clearest symbol of the United States in Turkey, which is this base. We have learned some groups tried to enter the base. Some say they were provocateurs, others that they were angry groups. There are mixed opinions. But what is clear is that this demonstration, part peaceful and part violent, sent a clear message to the Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is visiting Ankara today, to lower the tensions in the region around the tragedy provoked by the Israeli aggression to Gaza. Obviously, it will be very difficult for him to convince the Turkish people and even its government, which took a stand by withdrawing its ambassador from Tel Aviv yesterday. So the United States and its Secretary of State have a tough agenda here in Ankara. Back to you now.
In the past 40 days, Israeli attacks have killed more than 9,700 people, most of them women and children, not to mention that the attacks have resulted in the demolition of Palestinian homes, leaving families displaced and communities devastated. In light of these events, the leader of the revolution of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Sayed Ali Khamenei, received the head of the political bureau of the Hamas movement, Ismail Haniyeh. During the meeting, Haniyeh reviewed the latest developments in Gaza, the crimes of the occupation, as well as the developments in the West Bank. For his part, Sayed Khamenei stressed the need for Islamic countries and international organizations to take serious measures and for Islamic governments to provide comprehensive and practical support to the people of Gaza. In Palestine, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates has expressed condemnation over statements made by Israeli Patrimony Prime Minister Ami Eliyahu, calling for an atomic bomb to be dropped on Gaza. The Palestinian Foreign Minister described these comments as a clear indication of campaigns stirred by Israeli officials to destroy Gaza and displace its residents. Palestinian Authority spokesman in Gaza, Salama Maruf, called on the International Criminal Court to include Eliyahu's request as proof that Israel acknowledges it is committing crimes against humanity and has been waging a genocidal war against the Gaza Strip. He also urged for pragmatic and real efforts on the part of the International Court in the face of the massacre of thousands of Palestinians and demanded that Israel comply with international law, human rights principles, and the protection of civilians. On Sunday, hundreds of thousands of protesters marched through Jakarta, the Indonesian capital, calling for an end to Israeli bombardment on the Gaza Strip. Demonstrators waved Indonesian and Palestinian flags and chanted slogans denouncing Israel's actions in Gaza as they filled the National Monument Park in central Jakarta. Several cabinet ministers and politicians attended the rally organized by the Indonesian Ulema Council, which is the country's most influential Islamic institution. Indonesia has long been a strong supporter of the Palestinians and has no diplomatic ties with Israel. On Sunday in Athens, thousands of people took part in a pro-Palestinian rally outside the Israeli embassy. Demonstrators waved Palestinian flags and chanted slogans in support of Palestinians and against Israel. This protest takes place the day after tens of thousands of pro-Palestinian demonstrators marched in cities from Washington in the United States to Milan in Italy, calling for a halt to Israel's bombardment of Gaza. Roughly 1,100 people have left the Gaza Strip through the Rafah crossing since Wednesday under an apparent agreement among the United States, Egypt, Israel, and Qatar, which mediates with Hamas. The marches reflected growing concern about the mounting civilian casualty toll and suffering from the Israel-Hamas conflict. And also in the United Kingdom, social movements held protests in support of the Palestinian cause. Rallies were held in the main towns of the UK on Sunday to reject the ongoing Israeli siege against the Gaza Strip. One of the main demonstrations took place in the southeast of the country in the city of Brighton. Those attending the rally marched in support of the freedom of the Palestinian people in the face of the Israeli occupation. Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In China, the 6th International Import Expo began with the presence of more than 3,400 exhibitors and almost 400,000 visitors. The expo will run until November 5th. Representatives from 154 countries, regions, and international organizations are attending the event, which is held in Shanghai. During the inauguration, the Chinese Premier Li Qiang indicated that the Asian giant will continue its path towards reform and openness with the objective of creating opportunities for cooperation beneficial to all. He also called for the promotion of world economic stability and recovery, emphasizing the need for international financial reform. Cuban Prime Minister Manuel Marrero met with his Chinese counterpart Li Qiang to strengthen ties and sign bilateral cooperation agreements. Li pointed out that the consensus reached between Presidents Xi Jinping and Miguel Díaz-Canel regarding the construction of a Chinese-Cuban community with a shared future as a choice in line with the fundamental interests of both nations. For his part, Manuel Marrero indicated that Cuba is willing to work with the Asian giant to implement the important consensus reached by the leaders of both countries. The agreement signed over various sectors such as biotechnology, agri-food, transport, and digital television. In Honduras, over 42,000 people have been affected by the heavy rains that have been hitting the country since last Monday. According to an official report, 2 people have died, 2 are missing, and there are over 42,000 people that have been affected one way or another. Moreover, several communities in the north have been cut off. Therefore, the authorities have implemented an evacuation plan for the areas at risk to transfer inhabitants to shelters. Meanwhile, the Honduran Risk and Emergency Management Department says it will continue to monitor the situation and urge the people to follow their announcements. In Italy, recent extreme weather events north of the country have caused over 6 billion euros in losses in agriculture. The Italian Farmers Confederation stated in a report that in the first 3 days of November, at least 73 extreme phenomena affected 70% of the northern region. Meanwhile, the European database on adverse weather conditions said that heat waves, torrential rains, and strong winds, other than causing death and infrastructure damage, also caused serious damage to crops. Numerous businesses were cut off by landslides, warehouses were submerged underwater, and thousands of hundredweights of wheat, seeds, and fertilizers were lost. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away.